Welcome to Make Your Money Matter, the show that aims to change the way we think about financial advice so you can make better financial decisions. Brad Barrett is a managing director and partner at One Capital Management, a wealth management firm serving nearly 1,500 clients nationwide with over $2.5 billion in assets. They are a group of advisors dedicated to ensuring their clients achieve their investment and retirement goals. And now, here's your host, Brad Barrett.
Welcome to Make Your Money Matter, the show dedicated to helping you create a better relationship with your money. I'm your host, Brad Barrett, and it's my goal to help distill the best ideas when it comes to your finances so you can make more confident money moves. Here at One Capital Management, our mission is simple: to help our clients and you listeners take control of your finances and build the life you deserve. Friends, today the challenge is no longer the access to information, but rather it's finding the right information. Wouldn't you agree? And more importantly, how that information applies to you. And that's my commitment to you here each and every week, because after all, your money matters. And before we get started on this week's episode, to find out more about myself or any one of our advisors here at the firm, you can go to our website at onecapitalmanagement.com. You can actually click on the media tab on the onecapitalmanagement.com website, and there you can download and subscribe to the Make Your Money Matter podcast. You can also download our show on Spotify, on the Apple app, on your phone, on Google Podcast. And if you like the show, tell someone you like. I guess if you don't like the show, tell someone you don't like. But I'm excited for this week's episode, and here's why. We're still in January. We're still in the new year, that whole new you, new year thing. And I'm calling this week's episode Perspective, because the more reviews I do with clients, the more discussions we have internally with our investment management team and just across our firm as a whole, I think it's time for us to all take a perspective here and look at all the stuff that's going on around us. Let's be honest, COVID-19, right? The gift that just keeps giving. I mean, this latest variant, Omicron, has cased a new wave of distractions for the global economy. So think about it. With thousands of flight cancellations during the holiday season in particular, to the slowdowns in manufacturing, and basically general disruption of all kinds. You may have read where 4.5 million workers in the US quit their jobs in November. This is equal to 3% of all workers employed in the US. That was a record. In the US, there are between 10 and 12 million job openings as of the end of the year, a couple weeks ago. Workers quit jobs in these numbers for a number of reasons. Most of the recent job movers have been the lower earners working in retail, services, or the hospitality industry. With the continuing pandemic that we've been seeing, and with this latest Omicron variant, employers are finding it basically hard to fill their job openings and have resorted to offering higher and higher wages. You can see where I'm going with this, right? This has led to wage increases averaging over 10% in 2021. There is more happening than just lower paid workers jumping to higher paying jobs. In the US, unemployment is now running at 3.9%, also at or below 2019 levels, to be fair. If unemployment levels are so low, my question is this: why are companies having such a hard time filling jobs? Looking below the surface as a perspective here this week, as I was writing this, a more complicated picture emerges. And there's a reason why I'm sharing this with you today. While the unemployment rate of 3.9% looks low, what's not captured is that over 2.6 million people that were working in the US in 2019 have not returned to the workforce. So they just simply retired. Now, others reevaluated their lifestyles and decided to scale back. Another big factor has been the changes forced by the pandemic and really government's responses to it. The closing of schools and remote learning has forced many to adjust their family lives to accommodate children at home. For whatever reason, work life has changed. We've seen it. And companies are having a hard time finding enough people to fill the jobs available. All right, let's get to the matter at hand here. Why am I bringing this up today on the show? And why should we be paying attention to the employment statistics, and why does it seem to matter? With this pandemic, and even before, there have been some profound changes occurring. Population growth has slowed, and immigration has been greatly curtailed. The economy continues to need more and more workers, but fewer and fewer are available. It's kind of a trend. Now, as we look to finally put COVID in the rearview mirror and behind us and build back our economies and government's balance sheets at that point, we will need to grow. So, what does a country need to grow? For a country to grow their economy, it boils down to two main components: increasing the workforce, more workers, and or increasing each worker's productivity, more output per hour worked. If a country does have additional workers, then growth must come from getting more out of each employee. This last year saw very positive returns and a feeling that all is moving towards a rebounding global economy. And it is. That's the biggest perspective I want to share. It is. Now, in spite of the variants that continue to pop up, we are beginning to come to grips with this virus. Vaccines are being administered. Drugs to fight the virus are being developed and approved. We are becoming better at identifying and protecting the most vulnerable among us, which is important. And we aren't done. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. One of the perspectives I want to share heading into 2022, and something I firmly believe in, that if we share a common hope that there is light at the end of the tunnel, we will all be better for it. Now, while the equity markets did well last year, with companies continuing to bounce back and further their growth and their earnings, there's still a long way to go. The hospitality industries, including hotels, restaurants, travel and leisure, they're all still far from recovered. We all probably can see that. They're probably needing another 2 years or so to fully recover, assuming no further government intervention. Now, think of all the jobs needed to be filled in just the travel industry alone when we start booking trips to our favorite or dream vacations. How many more people will be needed as small businesses once again begin to open? The healthcare industry has been basically pushed to the brink, and many workers quit because of the stress placed on them. There are a lot of job openings there as well. This brings us to the beginning of the discussion I wanted to have today about the labor force and really why it's important for an episode around perspective. With fewer workers available, what does it mean for the economy? We haven't used the I word yet, but here it goes. Inflation. You were probably waiting for it, as you heard me earlier say it. It's the number one thing talked about right now, inflation. Inflation will be higher than expected, not runaway, but persistent and will last longer. And a quick caveat here on perspective and a number that just came out a week or so ago around 2021's 7% or so inflation increase. A perspective here is really important is the year over year gains in inflation, if you really look at it, have been amplified by declines in prices a year ago. Supply chains are still an issue and a big problem, but when you compare year over year, again, you see a larger gain in inflation because you're comparing it to the previous year's decline in prices. So you have to look at that on both sides. Now, we are seeing wage inflation as well right now. And you look at any restaurant or retail store or small business in your neighborhood, you'll see it. There'll be a sign out there that says help wanted. Their signs are everywhere. And they're offering, again, as I mentioned earlier, higher starting wages. It's not just the low-paying jobs either. Microsoft, in particular, has lost over 100 highly paid programmers to other tech companies looking for talent to grow their offerings. So it's not uncommon to see companies now offering bonuses just to stay, which is unprecedented. So this employee shortage is being felt pretty much everywhere. The rising cost of labor is being passed on in higher prices for almost everything we consume. That's where we're seeing inflation. No wonder, by the way, central banks are looking to begin raising interest rates this year. The U.S. Federal Reserve is expected to raise short-term rates at least 3 times this year and more in 2023. This will bring some anxiety and probably some market volatility as well. But as I've shared with you before, volatility in the markets can be a good friend if you know what you're looking at. And we feel here at One Capital Management, we do. Not all the time in terms of future expectations, but we run the numbers. We look at the fundamentals, we take stock of where we are at, and we manage your portfolio. That's what a good active manager should be doing. And as we look to our investments going forward, we will be following these trends closely. Technology will continue to be deployed to help increase productivity of the workers that are available. Now, some examples of this, real quickly, are in how we order and pay for food at quote unquote fast food restaurants. Automated kiosks and electronic payment methods are just some examples. I mean, ordering and paying online or by phones and then just pick it up is the go-to for Starbucks, as an example. So anyone traveling, by the way, will recognize the changes and fewer actual bodies, human bodies, to help. The entire technology industry is dedicated to this very endeavor. And as you've heard me say before on this show and this podcast, is technology is a disruptor. Whether you look at it as good or bad, I mean, just try to Google Blockbuster on your BlackBerry and you'll see my point, right? And another positive to look for is the job participation rate, as I mentioned earlier. This is the percentage, okay, of people that could work if they chose to. This is different, by the way, than the unemployment rate that looks at who is actively seeking employment. In the US, this rate has hovered right around 63%, but is currently around 61%. If we return to historic norms, the US would add more than 3 million additional workers. So in short, on this week's episode, it's a short one, it's a quick one, and I wanted to be very concise with this before we end the first month of the year around perspective. The post-pandemic world will be different. We're already seeing it, let's be honest. But there is much to be excited about. If we, as a whole, have hope aligned, we'll all be better off for it. Companies are adjusting and adapting to continue to thrive. Our investment will too. I want to thank you for listening to the Make Your Money Matter show. Before acting upon anything discussed today, remember, speak with a financial advisor near you. And if you're not sure where to turn and you'd like our help, again, you can visit us at onecapitalmanagement.com. And until next week, always remember, make your money matter.
The information in this podcast is educational and general in nature and does not take into consideration the listener's personal circumstances. Therefore, it is not intended to be a substitute for specific, individualized financial, legal, or tax advice. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a final decision.